The first sound I heard in my new neighborhood wasn't the welcoming chime of wind chimes or the friendly chatter of neighbors bringing over pie. It was a shriek. Not just any shriek and ear-splitting, nasal command that cut through the air like a leaf blower at sunrise. "Get off this property before I call the police." That's what she said before I'd even closed the back of the U-Haul. I turned around, soap still on my hands from cleaning the kitchen sink, and there she was. A woman in her late 50s, tight bun, clipboard clutched in one hand like it was the Constitution, and a sour scowl on her face like she'd just bitten into a lemon and found a bug in the middle. She didn't ask my name, didn't ask if we needed help, just marched straight up the driveway and started pointing at me, my wife, even our golden retriever, Daisy. "This home isn't on the approved purchase list," she snapped. "You're not a real homeowner." I blinked. That's all I could do at first, blink and wonder if I'd stumbled into a bad reality show or maybe a hidden camera prank. But nope, this wasn't a joke. This was real life. And that woman, as I'd come to learn in painful detail, was Margaret Taylor, head of the Oak Meadow Bluffs HOA, self-declared gatekeeper of community standards, and unofficial tyrant of all things shrub-related. See, I'd bought that house fair and square 2 weeks prior. My name was on the deed, the mortgage, the closing documents, you name it. But Margaret didn't care. She'd decided I didn't belong, and that was enough for her to turn my first day into a courtroom drama without a jury. My wife, Ellen, tried to introduce herself, only for Margaret to wave her off like she was a door-to-door solicitor. "I'm not talking to tenants," she said. "I'm talking to whoever's pretending to own this lot." Now, what Margaret didn't know, what made all this so delicious in hindsight, was that I wasn't just a homeowner. I was also the managing partner of a private equity firm that specialized in distressed real estate and failing HOA turnarounds. But I'd moved here to get away from all that. After years of city contracts, lawsuits, and corporate politics, I just wanted a quiet place to grill some ribs and maybe build a garden. But Margaret had other plans. That very evening, I got my first official HOA citation. 2 men in polos and high-vis vests showed up claiming we had unauthorized landscaping materials, which turned out to be 4 sealed bags of mulch on the driveway. The fine? $125. Next morning, another violation vehicle of non-luxury brand parked overnight on the street. That would be my old Jeep, dusty from the move. Third day, a fine for not having curtains yet. I kid you not. My windows still had moving tape on them. I started asking around. Neighbors barely made eye contact. One whispered that Margaret once fined a family for letting their kid draw with sidewalk chalk. Another said she nearly got evicted over too many pumpkins during Halloween. Everyone lived under this silent rule of compliance. Or else. But what really flipped the switch for me was a note slipped under my door in a cheap envelope that said, in mangled grammar, "You are not a recognized resident and must vacate." No HOA letterhead. Just Margaret's name, written in looping cursive like she was signing yearbooks. That's when I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because I realized this woman thought she could bully me into leaving. What she didn't know was Oak Meadow Bluffs had been hemorrhaging money for years. I knew that because I'd done my homework. The HOA had borrowed to install new gates, pave roads, upgrade the pool house. They were months away from default. And I saw an opportunity. I called my old friend and real estate attorney, Mike. Told him, I want to buy the HOA. Quietly. He thought I was joking. Then he heard the story about the sidewalk chalk fine and said, let's get to work. Through a holding company, we approached the bank that held the HOA's debt. They were more than willing to sell. Within 5 business days, I became the majority debt holder. 1 week later, we initiated a foreclosure on the HOA's control charter, which according to a clause in their own bylaws transferred operational authority to the controlling creditor in the event of insolvency. In plain English, I now own the HOA. But I kept it quiet, because while the legal machinery was moving, Margaret kept escalating. She called security on me twice, left handwritten notes on my windshield. One read, "This isn't your home. We're watching." 3 days before the final takeover, she brought 2 hired guards to my door and demanded to see my proof of residency. I told her, Margaret, you've got 72 hours left. Enjoy your clipboard. Then I closed the door and nearly spilled my coffee from laughing. On the day of the emergency HOA meeting called legally by May walked in with documents in hand. Margaret was already there, arms crossed, steam practically rising from her scalp. She declared the meeting invalid. "You're not authorized to call this," she shouted. I handed the moderator the court documents. "As of this morning," I said, "the operational control of Oak Meadow Bluffs has been transferred to Evergreen Property Holdings, of which I am managing partner." The room fell silent. Margaret looked like someone had unplugged her soul. I continued, "Effective immediately, you're no longer HOA president." I handed her the termination notice. She ripped it in half and stormed out, knocking over a tray of coffee cups on her way. One neighbor muttered, "About time." That night, I had neighbors I'd never spoken to bring over baked goods. One guy, Hank, said, "You just did what none of us could in 10 years. I told him I wasn't trying to be a hero, I just wanted to plant tomatoes in peace. From there, we got to work. All frivolous fines were voided. Refunds processed. New charter drafted. Elections planned. We made it transparent, open meetings, digital minutes, community input. And sure enough, the place transformed. People stopped living in fear. Kids played outside again. Daisy ran leash-free in our fenced yard, tail wagging like she finally understood this was home. Margaret tried to fight back, sent flyers around claiming I was a corporate spy, tried to host her own emergency meeting with folding chairs on her driveway. Only 4 people showed up, 12 of them her cousins. She filed a complaint with the county, accusing me of fraud. The county clerk dismissed it with a note saying, "Please stop wasting public resources." But the final blow? That came when we audited the HOA's financial records. Turns out Margaret had authorized over $35,000 in discretionary expenses, many of which benefited her personally. She'd used HOA funds to build a shed on her property, labeled as a community tool station. She had purchased a spa chair for her home office, listed under ergonomic seating for board use. We brought it to the board, and the new treasurer, a retired IRS agent named Linda, just said, "We're suing." And we did. Margaret moved out 3 weeks later. No goodbye, no explanation. Just loaded up her beige SUV and vanished. The house sat for months. When it finally sold, the new owners got a welcome kit and a fridge magnet that read, "You're home now." These days, things are different. The board is made up of real neighbors. We have potlucks, movie nights in the park, even a community garden. One of the kids made a chalk mural that reads, "Love lives here." Sometimes I walk past Margaret's old house and wonder if she ever understood what she lost. Not power, not prestige, but people, neighbors, trust, peace. She built her empire on fear and found out the hard way. That kind of kingdom never lasts. I didn't want this fight, but I'm glad it happened. Because now, for the first time in a long time, I feel like I truly belong. And maybe that's the real victory. Let me ask you something. Have you ever lived somewhere where one person thought they owned the whole street? Or dealt with an HOA that forgot it was supposed to serve the people, not control them? Drop your stories down below. I'd love to hear what your version of Margaret looked like and how you handled it. Let's talk about it. Because community should feel like home, not a courtroom.